In a peaceful corner of Austin, Texas, tucked away in a neighborhood lined with tall oak trees and quiet sidewalks, lived a woman named Sarah Collins. The streets were calm, the kind of place where people waved at each other as they passed, and where evenings were filled with the soft rustling of leaves in the warm breeze. It was a place that felt safe, familiar, and comforting, much like Sarah herself. At 42 years old, Sarah lived a life that many would call meaningful, though it was far from easy. She worked as a pediatric nurse at the city's children's hospital, a job that required not just medical skill, but deep emotional strength. Every day she stood beside worried parents, frightened children, and doctors delivering difficult news. It was exhausting work, both physically and emotionally, but Sarah never once doubted her choice. She had always wanted to be someone who made a difference, someone who could offer comfort in the darkest moments. Even after long shifts, when her feet throbbed and her back ached, Sarah's heart was always focused on home. That was where her husband Mark and her 17-year-old stepson Ethan waited. And though her career was demanding, the role that meant the most to her was the one she never expected to have, the role of a stepmother. Sarah had never planned to fall in love with a man who already had a child, but when she met Mark, everything felt right. He was gentle, reliable, and sincere. He didn't make promises lightly, and when he spoke, he meant every word. Mark had been through heartbreak before, a divorce that left him raising Ethan part-time, but his love for his son was unshakable. From the very beginning, he made one thing clear to Sarah: Ethan would always come first. Instead of scaring her away, that only made her love Mark more. But loving a man with a child meant stepping into a complicated world. When Sarah married Mark, she didn't just gain a husband, she gained a teenage boy who didn't know if he wanted her in his life at all. Ethan was 12 years old when Sarah officially became part of his world. At that age, he understood that his parents were no longer together, but he didn't fully know how to deal with the pain of it. He carried his hurt quietly, hiding behind video games, headphones, and closed bedroom doors. To him, Sarah was a stranger trying to fit into a space that already felt broken. At first, Ethan treated her politely but distantly. He would say "thank you" when she cooked, or acknowledge her when Mark insisted, but there was always a wall between them. He didn't open up. He didn't laugh with her. He didn't share his thoughts. And that hurt more than Sarah ever let on. She tried everything she could think of. She learned how to cook his favorite meals. She sat in the hot Texas sun, cheering for him at soccer games. She bought him the art supplies he once casually mentioned wanting. Sometimes he smiled, sometimes he said thank you, but most of the time he disappeared back into his own quiet world. Late at night, Sarah would lie awake beside Mark, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was failing. "Maybe he'll never see me as family," she whispered one night, tears in her eyes. Mark reached for her hand. "Give him time," he said softly. "He's been through more than he knows how to express. But I know my son. He sees what you're doing, even if he doesn't say it. One day he'll understand." Sarah held on to those words like a lifeline, so she kept going. She kept showing up. She helped with homework. She listened when Ethan talked about school. She attended every soccer game. She never tried to replace his biological mother, but she made sure he always had someone he could depend on. Slowly, things began to change. Ethan started standing beside her in the kitchen when she baked. He began asking her for advice about school projects. Sometimes he showed her funny videos on his phone. At games, he'd give her a quick wave when he spotted her in the crowd. To Sarah, these tiny gestures meant everything. Still, one question stayed in her heart. Did Ethan truly see her as family, or just someone who lived in the same house? That question lingered until one unforgettable winter night. It was mid-December, and the neighborhood was glowing with holiday magic. Houses were wrapped in sparkling lights. Wreaths decorated every door. The air smelled of pine, cinnamon, and fresh, cold air. Sarah had been working extra shifts at the hospital, caring for children who wouldn't be home for Christmas. One evening, she came home later than usual, tired, worn out, and emotionally drained. But when she stepped inside, something felt different. Soft Christmas music filled the house. Twinkling lights glowed. The atmosphere was warm and gentle, almost magical. "Mark?" she called. "Ethan?" "Up here," Ethan replied. Confused, Sarah walked upstairs, and when she reached the hallway, she froze. White fairy lights lined the walls. Paper snowflakes were taped ever.